Incredible Nanny solves 300 million dilemma in seconds. What the CEO discovered next is touching. Emma spent nearly a decade devoted to the Matthews children, her laughter echoing through the sprawling halls of their home while she balanced academic excellence with playful chaos. Yet, in the shadow of the illustrious Robert Matthews, tech mogul and celebrated CEO, she often shrank into the background, a mere caregiver in a world pulsating with high-stakes discussions and corporate ambition. The seemingly endless buzz of money-driven conversations surrounded her, suffocating her own aspirations. A creeping sense of insignificance gnawed at her, a whisper that echoed louder than any praise she received for her dedication. But on that fateful afternoon, the children sprawled across the dining table, textbooks and crayons scattered like wildflowers. Emma settled into a rhythm, guiding them through fractions like a conductor leading an orchestra. But then, distraction pulled her toward Robert's study. There, open against the mahogany desk, lay spreadsheets, numbers glaring up at her like silent alarms. Her heart raced as she approached, curiosity morphing into dread as the columns blurred into chaos. This wasn't just data, this was a revelation lurking within, a harbinger of disaster. Staring at the flickering screen, she hesitated. Was it really her place to delve into the fortress of Robert's financial empire? The air thickened with doubt. She battled a storm of emotions. Fear of overstepping, the weight of her unworthiness, and a nagging guilt that tightened like a noose. Yet there was a flicker of determination stoking the flames of her courage. Could she ignore the fluttering sensation that urged her to act? Emma inhaled sharply, her breath catching as she felt the walls of hierarchy close in around her. The odds of her voice being heard simply felt insurmountable. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. All night, Emma fought against the encroaching hour. The kids' laughter faded into the backdrop as she deciphered complex anomalies, tying together the narrative of impending doom in Robert's company, her heart pounding with every line she unraveled. Doubts loomed larger as sunrise edged nearer. What if she was wrong? What if this revelation only exposed her naivete? The company could either flourish with her solution or falter, leaving her vulnerable and dismissed. Emma's breaths quickened suddenly. The weight of a 300 million dilemma rested on her shoulders. As dawn broke, Emma stood on the precipice of her decision. She could either retreat back into the familiar shadows of her life, where she was respected but never seen, or step forward into the bracing light of corporate scrutiny. Could she challenge the very fabric of how value was understood? The prospect of revealing herself to Robert, a man who inhabited a world of success so distinct from her own, heightened her tension. In that instant, she felt both the urgency to act and the fear of potential isolation. Would he see her as a mere nanny, or as a beacon of wisdom in a company drifting toward ruin? As the sun climbed higher, casting rays across the polished floors, Emma felt a transformative shift in her heart. A struggle unfolded deep within, one that would determine whether her voice would rise above the echoes of the past or succumb to them. The question loomed heavy. Would she finally seize her moment, or would she be engulfed by the darkness of insignificance once more, leaving her to navigate the distance that threatened to entrap her forever? Sitting at the kitchen island, a cup of coffee cooling beside her, Emma replayed the last hours in her mind. The spreadsheets haunted her, flickering figures dancing in her memory, mocking her doubts. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to extract clarity from the chaos. What exactly had she uncovered? Patterns, flaws, and glaring opportunities rippled beneath the surface, potential that could redirect the course of a company. But could this insight, nurtured in the innocuous atmosphere of childcare, be valued in the ruthless sphere of corporate decision-making? With shaky hands, she opened her laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. It was time to organize her thoughts into something coherent. The sun filtered through the windows, illuminating the scattered remnants of breakfast, the untouched toast, half-filled glasses. Her reflection stared back at her from the glossy surface, a glimpse of the woman she had grown into over the years. Eyes that once shone with a youthful hope now held the weight of anticipated decisions. As she typed, Emma felt a surge of empowerment. Her thoughts morphed into articulate outlines. She began to visualize the implications of her findings. Risks, yes, but within each risk lay a possibility for the Matthews family and their enterprise. She couldn't ignore the thrill bubbling inside her. Perhaps this was her moment of evolution. After years of navigating the backdrop, she was now the architect of potential change. The sun climbed higher, and she heard footsteps behind her. It was Robert, in his crisp button-down and tailored pants, already immersed in the world beyond these walls. She straightened, feeling the familiar chill of vulnerability wash over her. To share what she had discovered would expose her to judgment, yet refusing to speak would chain her ambition to the floor confined, stifled. Emma? His voice broke through her spiraling thoughts, causing her heart to race. Mr. Matthews, she replied, trying to inject a steadiness that belied the tempest brewing within. I found something in your financial overview last night. Robert regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Something significant? Possibly, she replied, her pulse quickening as she navigated between apprehension and a spiraling anticipation for the unknown. There are discrepancies in the revenue projections and certain unmonitored expenditures that point to a larger issue. His expression shifted, skepticism creasing his brow. Emma, financial forecasts are complex, and I'm not sure they're also vital, she interjected. For a moment, it felt as if they were suspended in time. She saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes. She was no mere caretaker. She had something of value to offer. Can I show you? The question escaped her lips before she could think better of it. Show me what? The analysis I did. Unfolding a page filled with graphs and tables, Emma felt the adrenaline clench her nerves tighter. Robert stepped closer, leaning over the counter, scrutinizing the information she had pulled together. A lingering silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the quiet hum of the household awakening around them. What you've done here, he began, his voice laced with surprise. His gaze flicked back to her. Was it admiration? Appraisal? Emma dared to hope. This is more than just an observation. It's a potential strategy. A tumult of emotions swirled within her, each turn of his words sparking a fizz of excitement tinged with an edge of trepidation. Had she crossed into a new realm of recognition? Did this mark the beginning of her transition from the shadows into a place where her voice held weight? Yet, as the thrill of momentum built, another thought gnawed at her. She had leaned in, fully, but was she ready for what would come next? The conversations that would follow could prove entirely different from mere analysis. They would entail challenge, confrontation, and the risk of failure. From here, we'll need to analyze further and possibly restructure, Robert said, enthusiasm in his voice, but doubt etched into her heart. A battle was brewing, not just against financial improbabilities, but against the very perceptions of her existence. Now, standing on the threshold of change, Emma could feel the stakes rising higher. She had shared a sliver of her capability, but what would she uncover about herself amid the complexities of corporate dynamics? Discomfort pulsed within her. Would this newfound path fortify her sense of identity? Or would she find herself overwhelmed when the corporate machinery turned its gaze upon her? As the tension settled into an eager silence, the undeniable question loomed larger than ever. Was she truly prepared to face the repercussions of stepping into an arena where she had never operated before? Emma watched Robert's brow furrow as he delved deeper into her analysis, his fingers grazing the charts she had painstakingly crafted. The coffee in front of her went forgotten, replaced by an electric tension that surged in her chest. With each nod Robert gave, each thoughtful pause he took, she felt her confidence flicker like a candle flame grasping for air in a drafty room. Can we sit down? Robert finally asked, motioning towards the dining table. The shift in setting felt significant. It was one thing to discuss ideas casually at a kitchen island, and quite another to approach them in a space designed for more serious discussions. As she followed him, Emma's heart fluttered with the mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Once seated, Robert stacked her pages carefully, his eyes glimmering with a newfound respect. This isn't just about discrepancies, Emma. You're talking about the viability of the company moving forward. If your observations hold true, we need to act quickly. The weight of his words pressed down on her. She had often dreamed of contributing meaningfully to the family business, but the reality of the responsibility made her feel unsteady. Would the repercussions of her findings lead to solutions that transformed the company, or would it reveal her shortcomings? The thought knotted in her stomach. Have you considered any specific strategies we might implement? He prodded, leaning in slightly, suggesting the conversational dynamic had shifted in her favor. There was a hint of desperation in his tone, as if he were ready to trust her more than she trusted herself. More data analysis for starters, she said, her voice steadier than she expected. But we need to communicate with the finance team, gauge their insights. Some of these projections involve assumptions made long before I even came on board. As she spoke, something inside her clicked into place. A sense of ownership began to wash over her, filling the crevices of self-doubt. Robert nodded, encouraging her to elaborate. Somehow, she found the courage to discuss potential cutbacks, reallocating funds, and even investing in technology that could streamline operations. For the first time, the words flowed freely, and she reveled in the acknowledgement evident in Robert's gaze. But as excitement pulsed through her, doubt clawed at her resolve. What if she had miscalculated the risk in her suggestions? What if her insights only made things worse? She bit her lip, a sudden wave of apprehension washing over her. "Emma, I want you to lead the discussions with the team," Robert stated, his authority clear in his voice. "Your fresh perspective could be just what we need. I'll back you up, but this is your moment." Panic surged within her, threatening to derail the momentum she had built. Did she have the skills and confidence necessary to carry this weighty task? The image of a corporate boardroom, filled with seasoned professionals, flashed before her eyes. Their skepticism and dismissive expressions loomed over her like a dark cloud, threatening to crush her aspirations before they took flight. But there was something tethering her to the possibility. The thrill of having shared her insight, the weight of responsibility blending with excitement, these swirling sensations hinted at a potential evolution that was hers for the taking. "What if I make a mistake?" she murmured, the fear slipping past her defenses. "Then we learn from it," Robert replied. "You've already done so much just to get here. This is an opportunity for growth, for both of us." His words lingered as she reflected on her journey. Had she come this far only to retreat in fear? Emma felt her resolve solidifying. It wouldn't be easy. Unpacking the intricacies of the business world would take every ounce of courage, wit, and strategy she had. But if she failed, would she be any worse off than before? "I'll do it," she found herself declaring. The decisiveness surprised even her. But as the adrenaline coursed through her veins, the dawn of preparation began. The impending meetings were not merely a test of her ideas but a pathway to carve out her identity within a world she had often observed from the sidelines. As she stepped into this new chapter, ready to confront her peers, another stark truth bloomed in her mind. Could this monumental shift uncover not only her professional capabilities, but also buried facets of herself that she never knew existed? The thought tangled with her determination as Emma steeled herself for the conversations to come. What awaited her was both intoxicating and terrifying, all hinging on whether she could command the very respect she sought. But amidst the anticipation, an unexpected dread began to fester. If she succeeded in transforming the company, could she claim her rightful place among those who once dismissed her? The stage was set, but the true battle lay ahead. In this arena, she would either thrive or be crushed under the weight of expectations and self-doubt. With her heart hammering in anticipation, she gathered her materials, ready to embrace the challenges ahead. The doorway to the boardroom stood ominously before her, a brink from which she would either leap into greatness or recoil in retreat. Emma felt the unwelcome thrill of fear and purpose merge, setting her on the precipice of a staggering revelation. This was not merely about the company's future, but her own. Would she step through? The boardroom was a stark contrast to the warm familiarity of her home office. Cold glass and polished wood surrounded Emma as she stepped inside, the weight of expectations crashing down like surf against a rocky shore. Her heart thudded in her chest, every pulse echoing doubt and determination. Seated around the table were the finance team, an ensemble of seasoned professionals, their expressions a blend of skepticism and curiosity that made her throat dry. "All right, everyone," she began, her voice quaking slightly but carrying a hint of steel. I'd like to discuss some insights regarding our recent projections and potential strategies for improvement. As she spoke, a mixture of fear and exhilaration coursed through her. Each word felt as though it hovered in the air, waiting to be scrutinized. She met the gaze of her colleagues, gauging their reactions, searching for a flicker of support. Instead, she was faced with a wall of disinterest, the way forward obscured by their expressions. Doubt rushed back, its familiarity stifling. Emma had done the analysis, had laid out clear pathways for the company to explore, yet the thought of this very room judging her worth made her pulse quicken. What if the strategies she proposed were naive? Shaking off the uncertainty, she leaned into the charts she'd prepared, gesturing to the first slide that detailed the recent discrepancies. If we increase our investment in technology, we could streamline our operational costs by upwards of 20%. Murmurs floated around the table, and she seized the moment, pressing on. Many of these assumptions made in the last fiscal year no longer hold. We need to recalibrate based on current market trends. Her voice felt more powerful with every word, and she felt the dynamics shift. That's a considerable risk, one board member, a gray-haired veteran of the finance industry, challenged, crossing his arms as if crossing her out. How can you be so sure our resources will support such endeavors? Have you any evidence to back this optimism? Emma's stomach tightened, the weight of the challenge heavier than the scrutiny she'd imagined. Flashes of self-doubt ignited a fire under her skin. Yet, this obstacle felt different. Rather than retreating, she recalled Robert's unyielding support, the trust he placed in her abilities. I understand your concerns, she replied, her voice steadying, but isn't it riskier to maintain our current trajectory without addressing these challenges? We're at a crossroads, and sometimes to move forward, we need to rethink how we allocate our resources. In our industry, agility is key. She swept her gaze across the room, taking note of their changing expressions. A flicker of recognition sparked in one of the junior analysts, perhaps recalling times when she, the apprentice, had been willing to absorb and learn. He seemed to inch forward, listening more intently. In that moment, she realized. This wasn't just about numbers. It was also about sharing a vision, about dismantling the barriers built over years of experience and leverage. As she passionately articulated her strategies, the narrative woven from fear transformed into one of conviction and hope. With each rebuttal she met and countered, Emma felt a swell of confidence crest within her, pushing against the tide of doubt. She showcased projections, case studies, and successful examples from competitors who had taken risks. By the end of her presentation, the air was nearly crackling with energy. Then, as she concluded, silence enveloped the room, stifling yet almost invigorating. Slowly, one by one, her colleagues began to nod. A flicker of engagement ignited in their eyes, replacing earlier skepticism with curiosity. Emma fought back a smile, a realization dawning. She wasn't just making a case for the company. She was carving out her space in the industry. Okay, Emma, Robert interjected, breaking the spell. Let us give this a shot. We need to formulate a plan for the next steps based on Emma's proposals. The ripple of support surged through the room, solidifying her place among them. But as the meeting concluded and the others left with murmurs of excitement and debate, dread loomed in Emma's chest. What if this newfound respect dissolved under the pressures that were surely to follow? Would they recall her tenacity tomorrow, or would their faith falter when faced with real risks? In that moment, the weight of her decisions pressed upon her anew. She felt buoyed by progress, yet acutely aware of the battle still to come. The next step wasn't just about executing strategies. It was a chance to anchor herself within an identity she was only beginning to forge, and as she exited the boardroom, heart thundering in triumph, she realized she stood on the precipice of becoming someone entirely new. But what awaited her in the trenches of intense scrutiny and high stakes could either fortify or fracture that identity she was eager to embrace. Emma felt the gnawing thought constrict her throat. If she failed to convince them again, could she withstand the fallout? With determination igniting her resolve, she promised herself that this was merely the beginning. But the true test, the challenges that lay ahead, haunted her as she ventured back to her desk. What would success mean if the pressure mounted higher than she had ever anticipated? Emma returned to her desk, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins from the board meeting. The muted hum of office chatter surrounded her, but the weight of anticipated pressure loomed larger than any noise could evoke. She needed to focus and strategize. The true battle was just beginning. It was time to convert aspirations into concrete plans. She opened her laptop and stared at the screen blankly. Multiple tabs lingered from her prior research, yet none provided the clarity she desperately sought. Deep down, Emma questioned if she was truly prepared for the implementation phase ahead. Would her colleagues remain supportive when they encountered obstacles? The lingering self-doubt tugged at her mind, like an ache she couldn't quite soothe. Determined to silence her worries, she began to cultivate a detailed action plan, layering her proposals with sifting data and robust examples from other firms that had successfully pivoted in times of uncertainty. She immersed herself in numbers, reports, and projections, feeling her confidence gradually re-emerge with each statistic. After all, she had done the heavy lifting. She had all the resources at her fingertips at that moment. A quick knock broke her concentration. The junior analyst, Marcus, peeked through the doorframe with an encouraging smile. "Hey, I just wanted to say, your presentation today was fantastic. Most of us really believe in what you're saying." His genuine enthusiasm drew a faint smile from Emma, a reminder that she had secured not just a place at the table, but allies in the journey. "Thanks, Marcus. Your insights mean a lot. I hope to collaborate with you more as we move forward. It's going to require input from everyone." The reminder of teamwork grounded Emma further. Each voice was crucial, each perspective a piece of the puzzle. And as that thought solidified, her vision for the next steps began to take a more defined shape. She started establishing roles, defining responsibilities that would allow her colleagues to shine while she guided the larger strategy. Yet, the gnawing dread returned. At the end of the day, what if those in higher management, those who merely nodded at her ideas, viewed her plan as too ambitious? What if it failed to produce the expected results? Shifting her focus back, she crafted a contingency strategy, anticipating potential hurdles and outlining proactive solutions. The clock ticked away the afternoon, and as the sun dipped lower in the sky, Emma filled the whiteboard with her thoughts, brainstorming ways to pivot the company's approach should challenges arise. The tangible action items heaped up like freshly laid groundwork, but the anxiety still marred her peace. With renewed purpose, she initiated an informal meeting with her team, allowing them the space to voice their concerns. As she spoke candidly about the interplay of trust and development, she noticed others starting to share their perspectives. Ideas gelled and grew. The icing on the cake came when Marcus put forth a suggestion that would further strengthen their foundation. "Think ahead. Prepare proactively." Echoes of his words reverberated in Emma's mind. Think ahead. That phrase wrapped around her heart, urging her to embrace the uncertainty. The moment sparked a realization. Her success wasn't dependent solely on her capability, but on the collective strength of those who rallied behind her vision. Over the coming weeks, she would need to elevate her leadership presence, staying attuned not just to her thoughts, but listening to the conversations of those around her. Assignment by assignment, day by day, she envisioned the landscape of possibilities unfolding, but just as her heart began to level, a sinking feeling took hold. The nature of her brilliance had forced her into an uncomfortable arena of leadership, where each day might feel like stepping onto a tightrope. Would she be able to balance the expectations of the team and fend off the skeptics? As Emma drew the final notes together, the uncertainty settled heavily on her shoulders again. The dawn of fresh challenges loomed close, and she sensed an impending confrontation with more than just professional fears. The realization dawned. Stepping beyond the safety of her previous role wasn't going to merely challenge her work ethic. It would put every aspect of her personal identity on the line. Feeling the gravity of it all, she couldn't help but wonder what would happen when she inevitably faced her next test. She knew the time had come to fully embrace this evolving role. And yet, the thought of dismantling the last vestiges of her old self felt like standing at the edge of a precipice, void of safety net. Would the fall be liberating or devastating? What awaited her on the other side? Emma took a deep breath and pushed those thoughts away, determined to navigate the waters ahead. Because in her world, fortitude would lead, but transformation would be the ultimate goal. Emma felt the walls of her office close in. The thrill of new possibility was dampened by the looming pressures of expectation. There would be no easy victories here. As the new initiatives came into sharper focus, she recognized the need for clear communication, a skill she had often avoided in favor of solitary effort. Her plan took shape over the next few days, not merely using numbers and statistics, but framing them into a narrative that could resonate with her team as well as the higher management. The stakes felt immense, and before she could address them to the team, she needed to finalize her own understanding of the implications, both positive and negative. Each evening, she reflected late into the night, digging into case studies of similar companies who had undergone transformations. Each success story was bolstered by leaders who spoke not just of numbers, but of vision and courage. The realization hit her hard. If she could not embody that leadership, her brilliant ideas would falter. An intense knot of fear twisted in her stomach when she thought of failure. Her performance would reflect not just on her, but on her entire team. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling day enveloped by complex decision-making, Emma confronted her internal anxieties directly. She picked up a pen and started jotting down every concern, every doubt that clouded her mind. What if nobody believes in my vision? Will I be able to handle the pressures from upper management when the scrutiny intensifies? How do I keep my team motivated, especially if things begin to crumble? These questions emerged like shadows under a bright light, and as she acknowledged each one, a strange sense of empowerment washed over her. In voicing her fears, she had stripped them of their power. Emma was not just a woman clambering up the corporate ladder. She was a decisive leader in the making, imperfect yet resolute. Her first Real test appeared unexpectedly when Cameron, the CFO, called her into a previously scheduled meeting. The weight of the situation anchored in her stomach. He had never shown much interest in her initiatives. As she entered, the cold, sterile atmosphere only underscored her flickering nerves. "Emma," he began, his voice steady, "we need to discuss your proposal in detail." His piercing gaze traced her for a moment, dissecting her resolve. The room felt like it could split open with the enormity of what was to come. "I'm particularly concerned about the risk levels," he continued, "and what that might mean for our financial standings." Every word he uttered felt like a challenge. Emma inhaled deeply. "I appreciate your concern, Cameron. However, I believe that with the right measures in place, we can mitigate those risks. I've also gathered some data from successful pivots which suggest that." As she spoke, the cadence of her voice began to steady and rise with each passing moment. Emma engaged in a discussion filled with fervor that she hadn't known lived within her. The arguments flowed, fortified with facts, and her confidence surged. Cameron's expression shifted slightly, more contemplative than critical. He leaned back in his chair, nodding slowly. When their meeting concluded and he turned to leave, Emma felt a spark of exhilaration. She had confronted one of her main doubters and had made headway, something she previously doubted. Yet, as her adrenaline faded to anticipation, a new apprehension crept in. The glimmer of victory over one confrontation didn't mean the path would remain clear. Would her rising confidence withstand the inevitable pushback that others might display? Emma returned to her desk feeling both invigorated and anxious. Could she carry this newfound assertiveness into her next meeting with the team? The looming conflict of expectations overshadowed her confidence. As she prepared her notes for the meeting and reflected on the importance of rallying her team, the implications of true leadership weighed heavily on her. The battle was only beginning, not just against skepticism, but against the emotion of doubt and the daunting notion of her potential. She stared at the wall of her office, the blank surface a metaphor for the unexplored possibilities. Each stroke of courage opened doors to numerous pathways, all leading somewhere uncertain. Emma had cleared her first hurdle, but the next level awaited, fortified by unseen challenges. Would she rise to conquer them again, stepping further into the light she was now illuminating? With a deep breath, she turned her gaze back to her laptop, ready to face the next round of challenges looming closer. The question that burned at the back end of her mind was insistent. How far could she push her own limits? What would it mean for the identity she was crafting as a leader? Emma glanced at her reflection in the screen, noting the determined gleam in her eyes that had only recently begun to emerge. She opened a blank document and started to type her thoughts, each keystroke a step toward clarity. This was more than just a routine meeting. It was an opportunity to solidify her aspirations and assert her vision. Preparation was key. The meeting with her team loomed ahead, and with it, the responsibility of instilling belief in her direction. She organized her ideas, weaving data into emotional narratives that illustrated potential outcomes, both good and bad. Each presentation slide became a brushstroke on the canvas of her leadership. She needed to create a mural that depicted not only what was at stake, but also the journey they would embark on together. The morning of the meeting arrived, the air thick with expectation. Emma arrived early, methodically arranging the room. Each detail mattered: the arrangement of chairs, the lighting, even the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. They would need comfort to ease the tension that often accompanied discussions about change. As her team trickled in, she observed the varying expressions on their faces: curiosity, skepticism, enthusiasm. There was a palpable tension, but Emma was determined. She felt the weight of responsibility, not only to convince them, but to inspire confidence. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me," she began, her voice steady yet welcoming. She saw the subtle nods and made mental notes of those who seemed more engaged than others. "Today, I want to discuss how we can pivot our strategy, aligning with our overarching goals while mitigating any risks." Taking a breath, she launched into her well-prepared narrative. As the slides changed, the story unfolded before them. Data transformed into a vision threaded with possibilities. Emma's passion resonated, her tone rising and falling like an orchestrated melody. She could feel the energy shift. Eyes that had been averted met hers. Hesitant smiles began to form among her colleagues. Each reaction fueled her determination. But inevitably, the questions came, as expected. Greg from marketing, known for his brutally honest skepticism, was among the first to challenge her. "What if this doesn't work? What's our backup plan?" His voice had the sting of a challenge, but Emma welcomed it. She had fortified herself against such exchanges, prepared answers not just laden with data, but infused with confidence. "That is a valid concern, Greg. Our plan includes contingencies, and we're assessing parallel strategies to ensure that we remain agile. The success stories I've researched highlight the importance of adaptability." A silence stretched, and Emma could almost hear the gears turning in their heads. "I think Emma's right," chimed in Laura, a relatively new member, but wise beyond her years. "Change is scary, but if we don't at least try, we could miss out on significant opportunities." Encouraged, Emma nodded in appreciation. The dynamic in the room began to shift. A collective energy emerged. Ideas started to flow freely, the room lighting up with discussions and brainstorming. When the meeting concluded, Emma felt a sense of accomplishment. They had unveiled their thoughts, their fears, and collectively embraced a unified direction. Another hurdle cleared. Yet, as she stepped out of the conference room, a familiar knot returned to her gut. What lay ahead threatened to undermine her newfound confidence. She couldn't shake the feeling that not everyone was on board. There lingered a residue of hesitation, an undercurrent of doubt about her leadership. The reality sunk in. Her journey was not only about uplifting herself, but leading others through their fears: fear of failure, fear of change, fear of uncertainty. With a heavy heart laden with curiosity, she pondered how to engage those resistant voices. Her determination solidified. Her next challenge would be to connect more deeply, to create a stronghold of trust and belief among her team. As she made her way back to her office, her mind raced with strategies. Would one-on-one sessions create pathways for understanding that group discussions couldn't? How could she ensure that her leadership was not just about a vision, but about guiding others toward their own sense of agency? Emma took a deep breath, ready to embrace these new possibilities. The moment she sat at her desk and began mapping out her next steps, she came face to face with a deeper question. What would it take for her to become the kind of leader she admired? What transformations awaited her both personally and professionally if she embraced this multifaceted challenge? Emma leaned back in her chair, her mind racing through the aftershocks of the meeting. It felt paradoxical. She had made significant strides in presenting her vision, yet the shadows of lingering doubts seemed to encapsulate her efforts. She had captivated her team, But the skepticism of a few could easily turn the tide of enthusiasm into a crumbled effort. As she rose from her desk, she resolved that the next step toward her personal evolution involved more than just rousing the excitement of her team. It required forging a collective trust that transcended their immediate fears. Emma tapped her fingers on the mahogany surface, the rhythmic sound echoing her racing heartbeat. The office hummed with activity, yet she felt isolated in her thoughts. Her gaze drifted to a cluster of colleagues laughing near the coffee machine. The camaraderie resonated with her, and she wondered how she could foster an environment where that same energy became instrumental in embracing change. The one-on-one sessions she had contemplated would certainly allow for intimate conversations, but how could she manifest a transformative atmosphere during those face-to-face engagements? Emma began crafting her approach. Rather than solely focusing on metrics and projections, she would tap into personal stories, hers and those of her team. Leaders like Nelson Mandela often spoke about the power of storytelling in breaking barriers, and she wanted to harness that energy. Giving the team a space to share their own experiences would create a deeper connection, a bridge that might dispel the fears lurking just beneath the surface. Drawing in a deep breath, she pulled up a template designed for her one-on-one meetings. This time, the questions required a personal touch. What were their hopes for the project? What experiences had shaped their perspectives? Each answer would serve as a piece of a larger puzzle, a map leading toward shared understanding. As she refined her agenda, Emma couldn't shake the unsettling feelings of doubt. While her intentions were anchored in authenticity, she had one question burning in the back of her mind. Could she transparently combat her own insecurities? Would vulnerability translate into strength among those who looked to her for guidance? The day arrived for her to initiate these personal sessions, and as she sat with the first team member, a soft-spoken analyst named Mark, she felt the familiar twinge of apprehension. He had been noticeably quiet during the previous meeting, his skepticism like a quiet storm in the background. "Mark, I'd really like to understand where you stand on our project," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "What do you think we need to prioritize?" For a moment, the silence hung between them. However, Mark's expression shifted as he spoke, revealing layers of concerns she hadn't anticipated. "Sometimes I feel our direction is risky. I don't want to be part of something that fails." His voice was resolute, but his gaze faltered. Emma took a breath, balancing on the precipice of honesty. "I share that fear. This is uncharted territory for us, and I don't have all the answers. But I believe we can navigate this together." Mark's surprise was evident in his eyes. It was a calculated risk to express such vulnerability, yet in that moment, Emma felt the connection deepen. Mark began to share his personal experiences with risk in previous jobs, moments that had shaken his confidence and made him hesitant. Each story became a thread woven into their budding rapport. As the meeting concluded, Emma left feeling light, as if a weight had been lifted. She realized that while the purpose of the conversation had been to gain insights, it had also gifted her with a lesson. Embracing her vulnerabilities had the potential to unlock understanding in others. She began to anticipate her next meetings with hope instead of dread. Yet, one question continued to nag at her resolve. Would this new approach be enough to quell the fears lingered beneath the surface? Emma knew she had to maintain this momentum, but her next meeting with Greg loomed larger than any other, a confrontation waiting to unfold. Just as she was about to dive into her preparation for that encounter, a thought struck her. How could she continue to assert her authority while simultaneously dismantling the walls of skepticism? The answer seemed elusive, but the challenge ahead ignited a spark within her. Determined to discover the answer, she sat down with renewed focus, ready to prepare for her pivotal meeting with Greg, a confrontation that could either fortify her newfound growth or expose the vulnerabilities she had just begun to embrace. Emma felt the tension rise, not just about the meeting itself, but about what it would reveal about her as a leader. As the clock ticked closer to her meeting with Greg, Emma found herself at a crossroads. She organized her notes with meticulous care, but no amount of preparation could quell the unease swelling in her chest. Greg held a significant influence within the team, and she could sense that his skepticism had a deeper root, fueled by past disappointments and a resistant nature toward change. Memories of their previous discussions rushed back to her, his dismissive remarks, his unwavering gaze that punctured her confidence. She had to approach this meeting not merely as a task, but as an opportunity to engage in a dialogue that could transform their dynamic. It was a delicate balance. She needed to assert her authority while being open enough to disarm his skepticism. How could she turn this potential conflict into a catalyst for deeper understanding? Emma closed her eyes momentarily, envisioning the conversation. What if she reframed the narrative? Instead of waiting for Greg to challenge her, she would initiate the discussion by addressing the uncertainties head-on, just as she had done with Mark. Transparent dialogue had built rapport with him. Could it do the same with Greg? Pushing away the images of doubt, she re-centered herself. "I am capable," she repeated in her mind, strengthening her resolve as if preparing for battle. When they met, she would draw on her earlier success and transform it into a framework for managing their conflicting perspectives. Yes, she could lead them through this. As the meeting time approached, Emma decided to adjust her strategy. She wouldn't shy away from the tough questions. Instead, she would invite Greg to share his thoughts and concerns openly. It was crucial for him to feel heard before she could express her vision. Taking a deep breath, she confirmed the settings and focused on crafting the right words to convey confidence in both her direction and Greg's insights. The door clicked open, and Greg walked in with his usual attire, a meticulous suit, and a demeanor that screamed business. His expression remained guarded, but a flicker of curiosity sparkled in his eyes. Emma gestured for him to take a seat, and as he complied, she made an intentional effort to connect. "Greg, I really appreciate you meeting with me today. I want to ensure I understand the complexities of your perspective regarding our project. What are your initial thoughts?" The question hung in the air, a plaintive invitation for dialogue. She watched him closely, his brow furrowing as he contemplated his response. For a moment, silence consumed the room before he finally spoke up. "I can't help but feel we're pushing too hard into areas we haven't fully vetted. It's a risk I can't ignore. If we fail, it will affect everyone." His tone was fierce, laced with genuine concern. Emma nodded, recognizing the fear underlying his words. "I can understand why you feel that way. The pressure of the unknown can be overwhelming. I share that concern, but I believe we can mitigate the risks together. How can we collaborate to assess these uncertainties more thoroughly?" Greg paused, processing her response. His posture shifted slightly, a sign that she might be getting through. Emma seized the moment. "You have a wealth of experience in this area, and I value your insights. We can use that to strengthen our approach." Gradually, their conversation morphed from debate to exploration. Greg began to outline specific areas he felt were risky and shared potential solutions he had considered. Emma listened intently, her initial tension easing as each exchange opened the floor for mutual understanding. Through his stories of past projects, she discovered uncharted competencies within him, creative solutions he initially dismissed as impossible. As the layers of skepticism began to peel away, Emma saw more than just a colleague. She recognized an ally. With excitement brimming in her chest, she proposed brainstorming sessions to craft a more resilient plan moving forward. It wasn't just about addressing fears, but leveraging each other's strengths. Yet even as the discussions evolved positively, Emma felt the cloud of skepticism still hovering. Would this newfound understanding be enough to fundamentally shift the dynamics within the team? The hour drew to a close, and as they wrapped up their conversation, Emma felt a surge of hope. It was a pivotal step, but the lingering doubt in the back of her mind clawed at her resolution. As Greg left, she understood that this was only the beginning. She had successfully navigated confrontation and forged a deeper dialogue. But would her transformation resonate with the entire team, or would others remain resistant? Emma's journey toward authentic leadership was far from over, and she knew she had more work ahead. With renewed fervor, she began drafting a plan for the following team meeting. Would they share the same understanding she had cultivated with Greg, or would she be faced with more skepticism? A creeping uncertainty pushed her to reflect deeply on her strategies as she braced for what lay ahead, another chance to prove that leadership was not just about leading from the front, but about forging connections within the team. The following weeks delivered a whirlwind of meetings, discussions, and endless inquiries, yet Emma thrived amidst the tumult. With every conversation, she transmuted her vulnerability into strength, allowing her colleagues to share their fears while navigating toward a common purpose. The shift in dynamics was palpable. What had once been a divided group now resonated with collaboration, fueled by Emma's determination to create a sense of shared ownership. Emma discovered that each interaction carved new paths for recognition and validation. The finance team, once skeptical, now sought her strategic insights in a way that left her both honored and invigorated. They began approaching her for guidance, their questions oscillating between technical queries and broader strategic discussions, reflecting their newfound respect for her capabilities. Emma held each discussion with purpose and clarity. She dissected projections, offered rational insights, and demonstrated her prowess while fostering a discourse that beckoned others to contribute their thoughts. The pivotal moment came when Emma stood before Robert and the executive board to present the company's revised strategy based on collective feedback. The energy in the room shifted. She could feel anticipation swirl in the air as she went through her multimedia presentation, one that harmonized hard data with poignant narratives that she crafted from her team's concerns and aspirations. "Emma," Robert finally interjected, a sense of pride glimmering in his expression. "The way you've consolidated so much input and extracted actionable insights is truly remarkable. You've proven that true leadership lies in harnessing the strengths of those around you." Her heart buoyed by recognition. She felt a rush of confidence bloom within her. Emma had not only conquered her fears, she had emerged on the other side, transformed. Each word spoken in support of her ideas validated the depth of her experience, shedding the shadow of insignificance that had once loomed large. As the applause rang through the boardroom, Emma realized that her evolution transcended professional achievement. It marked a profound internal transformation. She was no longer a caregiver confined to the background. She was now a formidable voice in corporate strategy, influencing decisions that shaped the future of the company. Beyond navigating the complexities of finance and the intricacies of teamwork, Emma carved her own identity in an environment where she had once felt like an outsider. The respect she earned solidified her position within the Matthews enterprise, no longer merely a guardian of children, but an essential architect of success. In the ensuing months, Emma led numerous successful initiatives, each one amplifying her confidence and reinforcing her place among her colleagues. She took pride in nurturing leadership within her team, regularly encouraging them to share their insights. The environment shifted again. It cultivated engagement, inviting new ideas that led to innovative solutions, pushing the company even further beyond its previous boundaries. Stepping back to watch her team excel where they once hesitated, she couldn't help but feel a fierce pride swelling within her. Emma had achieved not just personal recognition, but had also created a culture where others could thrive together. Her involvement in high-stakes strategy meetings and her ability to influence outcomes acknowledged her as a key player in the corporate space. As Emma walked through the now familiar halls, her laughter echoing in newfound harmony with corporate discussions, she recognized a profound truth. She had conquered the greatest dilemma of all, the one that lay within her, silently questioning her place in a world driven by ambition and numbers, had turned into a narrative of resolve and excellence. This was her defining moment, a transformation measured not simply in promotions or accolades, but in the unwavering belief she had forged within herself. Emma stood tall, no longer seeking approval, but confidently embracing her role. She had proven her worth, silencing the doubts that once loomed large. So, let this be a testament to every aspiring individual feeling overshadowed. Your voice matters, your insights are vital, and your journey towards self-discovery holds immeasurable power. Now, it's your turn to take a leap. Don't wait one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. You need to share your thoughts with us. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm and comment your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. And remember to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformational story. Show your support and embrace the stories that uplift those yearning for change.